This is an especially challenging time for members of law enforcement in our state and in our nation. And sadly, the unconscionable actions of a few have been used to demean and question the character of all law enforcement officers and to fuel an all-out assault on the entire law enforcement community. Last year, when the Defund the Police movement started gaining momentum, I was one of the first leaders in America to speak out loudly against it and to completely reject the idea. Let me reiterate what I've been saying for more than a year. Trying to reduce crime by defunding police is dangerous, radical, far-left lunacy. Thinking that you can improve law enforcement by defunding the police is like saying that you want to improve education by defunding the schools. It's absurd and ridiculous. Just last week, a Baltimore City councilman actually called for abolishing the police department. Violent crime is out of control in Baltimore City. They're on pace to surpass 300 homicides again this year. The Baltimore Police Department is short-staffed by more than 300 officers. The City of Baltimore is a poster child for the basic failure to stop lawlessness. There's a prosecutor who refuses to prosecute crime, and there's a revolving door of repeat offenders who are being let right back onto the streets to shoot people again and again. All of this has had a chilling effect on effective policing and on the willingness of victims and witnesses to come forward. Residents and community leaders are completely fed up, and they're pleading with the city's elected leaders to take action. Homicides are surging across the country. There are violent crime waves in nearly every major city. Law enforcement agencies nationwide are struggling to attract qualified candidates, and many current officers are retiring early or simply choosing to quit. You could not possibly have a worse time for anyone to be calling to defund the police or for cutting funding for public safety. The reality is that our police are underfunded and under attack. To reverse the tide of rising crime, we need to stop demonizing and sabotaging the dedicated men and women who risked their lives every single day to keep the rest of us safe. Enough is enough. We cannot defund the police. We need to refund the police. Instead of less funding, we need more investment in public safety so that we can recruit and retain quality officers, so that we can increase diversity, so that we can expand community policing programs, so that we can teach better de-escalation techniques and improve training, so that we can provide body cams and other technology and equipment. We need to increase funding for law enforcement in order to improve policing, build more trust in the community, and most importantly, so that we can keep our neighborhoods safe. Cutting funding, reducing resources, reducing the number of police officers, reducing training and the quality of police officers is not the answer. And I can tell you that the state of Maryland will not defund the police as long as I'm governor. Instead, we're going to refund the police. Today is the first in what will be a series of announcements regarding our initiatives to do just that. Beginning today, with the investment of an additional $150 million of increased support for our police and increased crime control and victim protection services all across the state. Our Refund the Police efforts include an additional $45 million, a 50% increase in state police aid to local jurisdictions statewide. With vacancies rising and recruitment waning, we will provide another $50 million to fund much-needed salary increases and hiring bonuses to ensure competitive compensation for all our state police agencies. Our Refund the Police initiative also includes $24 million to create a new Accountability Resources Fund, which will pay for more body cams, more de-escalation training, and other critical tools for state and local police agencies. An additional $1 million will go directly to the Maryland Chiefs and Sheriffs Associations to help them further expand operational training and support. We will provide an additional $10 million in neighborhood safety grants to be distributed through the DHCD Main Street Maryland program to support hardware upgrades, lighting, cameras, and increased security services for community organizations, business districts, main streets, and neighborhoods all across Maryland. Today, we're also launching a new plan which will provide a 100% state-funded match for all Crime Stoppers rewards in order to further incentivize more witnesses to come forward and offer testimony so that more violent criminals are actually convicted and taken off our streets. Our administration has worked tirelessly to empower victims, to give them the resources that they need to be safe and self-sufficient, and to help break the cycle of victimization. Congress is doing just the opposite. They just slashed the Victims of Crimes Act, drastically cutting victim service providers by 40%. These are absolutely vital resources for some of our most vulnerable, including the victims of sexual assault and domestic abuse. This action by Congress would force these incredible and important programs to lay off their workers and in some cases even shut down their operations. That is not going to happen in Maryland because I'm announcing today that we will provide an additional $14 million in funding to make up for this defunding of victims by the Congress. This investment will allow us to fully fund all of the eligible funding requests that we have received from every victim services provider across the entire state. The Maryland General Assembly also brazenly defunded state services for victims, including reimbursements for the costs of sexual assault exams. And they cut an important program that shields the addresses of victims of domestic violence and human trafficking so that abusers cannot locate them. Today, we are providing $6 million to restore the funding for this and other critical programs which were recklessly defunded by the legislature. Our $150 million Refund the Police initiative will provide a desperately needed shot in the arm to our state and local police agencies and their critical efforts to stop crime. But there is far more work to be done. In addition to investing more in law enforcement, we also need the legislature to finally agree to pass tougher laws that hold violent criminals more accountable. We need prosecutors who will actually prosecute criminals, and we need judges who are more accountable for the sentencing they give to repeat violent felons. In the coming weeks, I will be announcing additional proposals, including legislation to support all of these crime-fighting initiatives. Every day, everywhere that I go, I make it a point to stop and shake the hand of every single law enforcement officer and first responder that I ever see, to personally and sincerely thank them for their service. I've shared tears and hugs and prayers with the grieving families of our fallen heroes and assured them that their loved ones would never be forgotten. For 7 years now, our administration has strongly supported our police with public safety initiatives to help law enforcement officers do their jobs more effectively and to help keep our Maryland citizens safe. Not a day goes by that I'm not grateful for their service. And I want every single one of them to know, especially in today's environment, when far too often our law enforcement officers are unfairly criticized and don't get the appreciation that they deserve, that you will continue to have the full support of your governor, that I will continue to have your back and proudly stand with each and every one of you. Thank you. With that, I'd be happy to take some questions.
Governor, months ago, you met with Scott and Harrison from Baltimore City. I'm sure some plans and new procedures were discussed. Has there been any follow-up on that, or what have you heard since then?
I mean, I think those are questions you should probably direct to the mayor. I haven't seen a whole lot of progress, quite frankly. We haven't seen progress in the statistics of what's happening in Baltimore City. I just don't think people are taking it as seriously as they should be. But hopefully some of these efforts will help that problem.
Governor, you did single out Baltimore City, and I wanted to know if you have a breakdown of how much of that $45 million aid to local jurisdictions could go to the city, or is there a formula that the state is looking at?
It's going to be a pro rata amount, so it's the 5th largest jurisdiction, and whatever based on population is how much money that they'll receive. Anybody else?
How soon can we expect to see some of the funding go out?
Some of it will be done right away, like some of the victims stuff that we have to replace the money that's taken away from Congress before they shut their doors. Some of it we'll be able to fund fairly quickly. Some of it has to be in our budget, which will be submitted in January.
Where's the money for these programs coming from?
Coming from a number of different sources, which will be laid out in further detail when we submit our budget.
A couple of things. When it comes to the victim services and also the incentives for witnesses, there's a plan in Baltimore City that would use some city funds to do that as well. Do you support local jurisdictions going ahead with that?
Absolutely. I mean, we've already provided serious amounts of money, particularly for Baltimore City, for both of those programs for victim services, providers all across the city and across the state. We've also provided money for things to try to encourage more witnesses to come forward. So it's great if their city is moving in that direction. Our effort would provide a 100% match for any of those dollars that any jurisdiction put up for those, I think, very effective and worthwhile programs.
And then also when it comes to working with the partners on the other side of this, I know this money is coming from the state, from the top down, but also how effective will it be if we have prosecutors in the city or elsewhere who aren't prosecuting some crimes that could potentially lead to other crimes down the road?
Well, as I mentioned in my remarks, that's extremely frustrating because I think, as I mentioned, the folks in this room and law enforcement officers across the state, but particularly in Baltimore City, have a really tough job already. And when you're arresting people, but no one is ever prosecuted, it really doesn't stop the crime when they keep coming back on the street. So there's no question that the failure to prosecute crime in Baltimore City is a major problem for why we have so many repeat violent offenders shooting people on the streets of Baltimore City.
Will this money help if that's not happening?
I don't know that this money is going to solve the problem. I think that's the citizens of Baltimore are going to have to solve that problem by electing leaders that will address these issues.
Governor, is this CARES Act money, just to sort of piggyback off of Ryan's question, is this CARES Act money?
No CARES Act money, I don't believe, but we might utilize some of the federal funding to cover some of this if we can.
Governor, you said in the past that you really are excited about augmenting the Baltimore City Police Department by maybe some National Guard after the state police. And the crime steadily increasing, as you say. Are you leaning, is that a thought coming into your head at all anymore?
Well, look, we've invested $1 billion in public safety in Baltimore City over 7 years. It's unprecedented and unheard of. State police have provided more assistance than ever before. All 5 of our state police agencies have provided additional increased support for the city. And we're going to continue to support them in every way we can. But, I did declare a state of emergency and send in the National Guard once before. We sent 4,000 members of the Guard and 1,000 additional police officers, and we stopped the violence and brought peace to the city. But that's not an ongoing strategy. That's not what they're trained for. It's not, we don't want, to declare martial law. What we'd like to do is see the city leaders step up and provide the assistance we can so that they can do something about the crime.
Governor, if I may ask you a quick question about vaccines.
Thank you. On vaccines, we saw the news yesterday about the recommendation from the panel at FDA. CDC, we expect final approval for some of the other vaccines not for the children yet, but for everybody else next Friday. And we'll be ready to immediately begin providing additional boosters for anybody who wants them that received J&J or Moderna or Pfizer. We've made great progress in that regard. You know, we're one of the most vaccinated states in the country. We've already done 200,000 boosters. Kids, we don't expect that approval for maybe another 2 weeks later, but we've been working for 3 or 4 months to prepare. The State Health Department has been working with the State Board of Ed and with all of our local health departments and local county schools operations, and I think they'll be ready to provide a booster shot to every child that wants one.
Last question, Martha Brown is supposed to have his first appearance in court next week. I wondered if you could sort of respond to some Democrats who have criticized you, saying that his charges are a reflection of your judgment in assigning him to the various positions in government.
No, I don't have any comment about that.
So Robin, when it comes to funding, really quickly, if I could just ask, you said it would be introduced in part of the budget. Have you had any conversations with your legislative partners about this?
We'll be talking with them between now and January, trying to convince them that these are the right things to invest in. Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you.